Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. It's not a webinar, is it?
No, it's a podcast.
It's a podcast. Welcome to this podcast. We are called Decrypting Relationships. My name is Tolu Falashe, and I have
Olu Benson.
And so we have come together. We feel really... We felt led to do this podcast just to support the people around us and all our listeners. Now, we want to say this, that we're not experts in the area of marriage or relationships, but we do have a lot of experience. So between Olu and I, we have about 40 years.
No, a lot more.
A lot more than 40
I'm 27. Almost.
And I'm 20.
Exactly. Almost 50 years. Whoa.
Almost 50 years. My goodness. Okay. That is phenomenal. So in about 50 plus years together, we are almost 50 years. We are hoping that, we will have some things that we can share that would be very useful to someone listening out there. Yes?
Yes. That's the plan.
Fantastic. And I think this is what has led us to putting this podcast together. And so if you enjoy or find value in the conversation that we've had, please subscribe. I believe there's a subscription service to this, and share with whomever you feel that will benefit from it. From our discussion. Okay, so this is the very first episode, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a dialogue. Olu and I will do a bit of a dialogue, and hopefully we'll share some powerful nuggets with you. Olu, do you want to add anything? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, just a short intro from my part. The idea is to cover our demographic isn't specific to a certain age group. It covers everybody who is interested in a relationship, more to the point, a healthy relationship, whether you're single, seeking to start one, whether you're already in one, looking to get married, or you're already married and you're young in it, or you're old in it, or, almost retired in it. We are just trusting that our experiences in our various different marriages will be able to bless people by going through our journeys from the very beginning, because like we all know, marriage is a journey. It's not a one day, strike a lucky thing. So from being single to being married and being able to sustain the marriage, that's what we're really about. Hence the name, Decrypting Relationships, because so that's really what we're about. So we hope we're able to help people, like Tolu already said, and we hope we're able to gain from what people will be sharing with us as their own various experiences. And just a disclaimer there, we're not qualified in terms of being marriage counselors. We're not educated in any specific areas of relationships. We're just two individuals who just felt the need to help as many people as could be helped based on some of our engagements with people, and see what we can do to help by being honest about the hurdles that we've skipped in our relationships, and hoping that those practical experiences will help.
Excellent. Thank you, Olu. And as you're speaking there, even though we've given the disclaimer, I remember the quote that I really appreciate. The quote says, "You're never too young to teach, and you're never too old to learn." So even though we're sharing our experiences, we're always we said earlier on, this is a journey. Marriage is a journey. So there is always room to teach, and there's always room to learn, and that is going to be sort of like the ethos of our conversation every time we meet like this. So it's a journey we're all learning from it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Olu, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Yes. So tell me, what was your, the idea, the grand idea of marriage before you got married? What was that to you? What did it, the whole idea of marriage, what was that to you before you got married?
I think if I'm being honest, I was never one of those young girls who dreamt about, oh, I want to be married to a 7 feet kind of guy, or I wanted somebody who was chiseled, or I wanted 4 children. I never
No,
really, no,
no.
seriously,
What
honestly.
kind of teenager
I
were you?
I was just a very, I've always been a very odd person because all these things that girls dreamt about and having 2 children or 4 children, I
Mm,
never had those conversations with anybody.
okay.
But I think culturally, it's just a natural progression with you as a young girl.
Yeah.
So, not as a young girl, as a young woman, because surely you're not getting married as a girl. So,
Yeah.
the idea of marriage, of course, she knew was something that was going to happen down the line. It was almost like a non negotiable, at least from
Yeah.
our part of the world in those
Absolutely.
days, because I'm quite old in this thing now. So, it was almost the norm. So, you
Yeah.
just knew you had to, progress towards that. So went to uni at a very young age. And in my final year, I thought, okay, God, you know what? I've stayed away from boys. I really said I was too young to get into anything serious. So if Mr. Right was anywhere around the corner, make sure he didn't show up because it was going to be an automatic no. So
Mm,
final year, getting ready for my final papers, I was like, okay, girl, you're going into the big wide world. You better start looking at the next degree because we used to crack a joke then after your your BSc or MSc, if you decided to do back to back, the next thing will be MRS. So I went and I really prayed into it that, okay, I was very naive, terribly naive. I can't even begin to tell you how terribly naive I was. Just like, okay, once I was done with uni, now I was going to start keeping an open mind, and yeah, that, God should just lead the right person my way.
mm.
I've always been a very, very emotional person. I'm the kind of person that literally wears my heart on my sleeve. So I didn't want to be
Mm.
hurt either. So I was
Okay.
like, God, please just let the right person come. I didn't want to play the game of being passed from one relationship to another to figure it out. I didn't think I could handle it because I'm the kind of person that gives my heart very easily, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just couldn't handle being,
I see.
trying one and not working. So yeah, that was really how
So,
it started. So yeah.
so for you, it was you almost had, and correct me if I'm wrong. Almost, you saw that natural progression. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
You finish your
Yeah.
studies, and you know the next season or stage in life would be the right person. And like you said, you wanted to make sure the right. Just hoped that right person would be there. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
for
was it.
me,
And yeah.
yeah, for me, I think the reason why I asked the question is because it almost begs the question, what is the purpose of marriage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because for me, growing up, my mom and dad were sort of like separated and divorced from a very early age, and I was fascinated by family units that were together, mom and dad and kids at home.
Mm.
And I always wondered what that would be like, and so I
Okay.
think it was almost that sense of missing out that gave me a real hunger for marriage. And I thought, okay, you know what? I looked forward to getting married to then actually experience what that would look like. So for me,
Mm.
that was my own, I guess, what shaped my thinking about marriage. It wasn't so much, well, um, it's not, yeah, obviously growing up in the culture that we grew up in, we saw that, you had
Mm.
this ordered progression. You finish your studies and you now need to
Yeah.
start settling down to get married. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a bit of that. So yeah,
But
fantastic.
it's interesting that you said that because from experience, what I've observed is that a lot of people from broken homes tend to run away from trying it out at all. So I think it'll be nice to understand your kind of attraction to it, despite you seeing it not working out. Because if you
Yeah,
ask an average person from a broken home, oh, marriage is not worth it. But at the end of the day, you've been in it and you realize that there's so many positives to it. And I
yeah,
think underneath everybody, nobody wants to die alone. You don't, no matter how successful you are, even if it wasn't something you set out to do, at least in my case, I knew at some point I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to
mm,
grow up old by myself. I didn't want to be old by myself. So
yeah,
without necessarily searching for the path to marriage, even though it culturally was what was expected, I think from a young age you knew, oh wow, this is something I aspire to do, because it's nice to go home You saw your parents coming back home, even when they had disagreements, you still knew you had somebody to kind of have that banter with. So it was just, so it was just, so it will be nice maybe down the line to kind of explore, the positive way you have handled this despite coming from a place of, just missing out on the positive side of marriage. So yeah.
Well, like I said, I think, and that's a very good observation you made, because I was speaking to a young person recently who, a relative, she's early 20s, and she said to me, she said, "Cause marriage is not for me. I'm just going to date. I'm seeing this guy. We're going to have kids together. There's no point getting married because everyone around me who got married are divorced or separated, or they even hate each other's guts, type of thing. So I don't think marriage is for me." And I just thought, wow, so you're absolutely right. Some people will put off from that experience.
Yeah.
For me, I think there was a curiosity, when there's a curiosity of I wonder what life is like to have mom and dad at home, because I was either spending one weekend with mom and then the next weekend with dad, and and I guess when I watch films, this, you watch family units working together. I think, do you remember the Cosby Show?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cosby Show, you would see
old school.
Yeah, you see mom, dad, and kids, and you see how there'll be conflicts and how they resolve the conflicts and issues, and they would talk things through, and everyone had a different perspective, and then together, they made something really positive and life building out of it. And I think that's what really, I aspire to it. I think I aspire to it. And I think the short answer to your question is, why wasn't I put off? I think I'm the sort of person, I think there are a lot of people listening, and I guess you are probably one of those as well, who likes a challenge. If it's a challenge, if there is something you aspire to, you don't let anything stand in your way, I guess. So I think that's what it was for me.
Yeah. Okay. It'll be nice to hear your actual journey, because like we said, marriage is a journey, and from you being single and then whatever prep work, so to speak, that you did to make sure you were well positioned to get into that space of marriage, and your go-to things or places to guide you to make sure you did the best that you could to get it right. So those are going to be very interesting things to learn along the way, and also hopefully help people out there who are seemingly in similar background situations, who are from marriages that didn't work. And I'm trusting that your experience and the determination that you had in you to make yours work, considering you've been in it for 20 years now, that the determination would encourage people out there to know that irrespective of your parents' mistakes, you don't have to carry that burden on you into your future. Your parents' mistakes do not define you. You could decide to make a difference, which you have. So I'm looking forward to getting that out there and hopefully getting people helped by it.
And I'm looking forward to hearing yours as well. So that, because
me, you will hear a lot about it.
Because like you said, 27 years, and, you 27 years, me 20 years. And we want people out there to know that, look, even if in your first, second year, and you're thinking, wow, this is just 2 or 3 years, and, this seems very, very difficult. Hang in there. It's ups and downs. Marriage is a journey. It's always up and down. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced, just like I said earlier on, with that show that I referred to, where families will sit down and resolve conflict, that is part and parcel of the marriage journey, which is really helping one another to perhaps bring to the surface some of the issues. When we got married, when Falake and I got married, there were issues that were deeply suppressed and hidden, that, obviously marriage would draw out and force you to address.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So that's part of why we're doing what we're doing with this podcast is really to say, look, guys, don't worry if it seems. Actually, do not think it's a strange thing. You know, if you're finding, you know, marriage a bit mysterious.
It
You
is
know?
supposed to be, because when you look at the fact that the two people who are forming this marriage are more often than not set in their ways. They're
Yeah.
from different backgrounds.
Yes.
They have difference of opinions, difference of all sorts. Their orientations are different. So it takes a coming together to then create your own space that's healthy for you.
Yeah.
So and I think more often than not, the main issues that are fought in the early stages of marriage are really around the fact that each person brings their own paradigm based on their experience of their parents' marriage into the situation. And they automatically want that or those misconceptions, or whether rightly or wrongly so, to work in theirs. And it takes a readjustment for you to identify that you and your partner are in a new relationship. You're from different backgrounds, and there's a lot of compromise that needs to be reached for you guys to then form a healthy space that works for both of you, not based on what your parents did, because now you're talking about four other people: your parent, one, the wife's parents, and the husband's parents. Those are four people who have formed theirs. So the two of you will take a few nuggets from theirs, and then you create yours and add to that to then create a very different and very customized, so to speak, relationship for you. And I think that is where we need to start looking to that. It's a compromise. It's a journey. It could be complicated if not handled well. And that is where, but if it's handled well with a lot of humility and the mind to learn, it's one of the most beautiful institutions. At least I'm speaking from experience. It's a wonderful thing to have a great companionship in your partner. It's a healthy thing to go home to somebody that you can crack jokes with without feeling that you need to hide away and be somebody else. I mean, that's the one person that you can truly, or you should truly be yourself with. So what better freedom, what better space could you look forward to having, other than having a great marriage or a great relationship where you're just you with your partner and they get you and they love you for that.
Brilliant. That was packed. The first thing you mentioned that caught my attention was, we come into our marriages set in our own ways, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So I have my own mindset, my wife has her own mindset, and we have emotional attachments, to our mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
and where there is a conflict or a clash, then the emotions will also play a huge part in it, in terms of, well, I want to preserve my, those attributes and those beliefs that you talked about earlier on, that I picked up growing up. And it's got emotional ties to it. So if my partner or my spouse challenges my beliefs or the values that I've picked up along the way, then it could, if I'm not careful,
it's almost like a personal attack.
Exactly. And that's, oh my goodness, and I think that's where it gets very sticky. It gets sticky, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me then, in light of some of these things we've mentioned, what is the one or two things that you could say, as you look back on the 27 years, has really been a powerful ally in keeping your marriage really strong?
Well, just a small correction there. We're actually in the 27th year of our marriage. We celebrated 26th anniversary a month or two ago. So we are leaving the 27th year.
Yeah.
But going back to the beginning, because I'm a Christian and I quote this a lot because it's very powerful. The Bible says, if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And that is why the idea of planning and setting out time to plan what it is you want for your life really matters. Because if you lay a solid foundation from the get-go, it's easier to build on it. But if your foundation is very shaky and it's half-hearted and it wasn't well thought through and it's one-sided, then it becomes a shaky foundation that no matter how well you build in future, because the structure isn't strong enough to hold the storms of marriage, the challenges of marriage, the beauty of marriage, it's likely to have serious cracks. There is no marriage, I'll tell you this hands down. There is no marriage without challenges. How we handle those challenges is what makes us successful or unsuccessful. My husband and I have had our fair share of challenges, but how we've handled those have actually helped us to be solid and be where we are today. So going back to that, one of the things, like I said earlier, when I got to my final year and I was writing my final year exams, I went to pray about it. And then I did a self-assessment of myself to say, okay, Olu, you're looking, because I wanted to know, when you're making all this mental list, I want a guy who is God-fearing. I want somebody who is generous, who has a kind heart, who is this, who is that. And then I looked at myself thinking, okay, you want this, you want that, you want that. Do you possess these qualities to match your expectations? Because the Bible says deep calls unto deep. I know they say opposites attract, but there's some core values that if there's a mismatch with, will cause a serious foundational issue in a marriage or in a relationship. So I had to assess myself to say, okay, am I a selfish person asking for a generous person? Am I somebody who thinks of just me, myself, and I want somebody who should worship me? Because I have had people who want to know the spouse or spouse to be this, to be that, to be that. And you look at them, you're thinking, you're one of the most selfish people I know, but you want somebody who puts you first.
And so self-evaluation is very important.
I had to do that. And also because I took my time, I knew what I wanted, because from what I've shared with you over the months now that you and I have been talking, I've always been very assertive from a very young age. And I wasn't going to settle for less. In as much as I was praying, I stayed alert, but I didn't settle for just anything, because I had a lot of suitors who came. There were so many things. I'm sure in time we'll get to know about some of the things that happened before I eventually chose the right person. So I didn't go for, just anybody, because I knew what I'd set before God that I wanted. They were not frivolous. It wasn't like, I wanted a six-pack person. I wanted somebody who was buff. They were not they were not frivolous qualities at all.
So is a six-pack frivolous?
Trust me, if your guy has a good heart, my principle, and I have two great girls who are women now, and one of the things I've told them is, if your guy has a great heart and he doesn't have the physique, or he's not a good dresser, those girls you can work on.
Absolutely.
But if your guy has six packs and he doesn't have a good heart, you're in trouble.
Wow. That is huge. Huge.
Exactly.
That is huge.
Or if your guy has everything else and it's not God-fearing, when it comes to it and the challenges of marriage setting and the compromises that need to be set or that need to be reached, both of you are standing on high ground to say, let's see who caves in first. Because the fear of God is not in that relationship, nobody caves in. So it becomes such a tense environment to perpetually go through.
Wow.
And those are the things that we need to be. We're not in time. We'll unpack all of this, because everything I've said is very loaded. So we'll unpack all of those. But those are the core things that I kind of made sure I got right from the outset. So I wasn't fixing things that didn't need fixing.
So what I'm hearing very, very loudly, very clearly from you is everything starts with self.
Yeah.
So that you, just like you said, if I'm looking for someone who's generous, am I generous myself?
Thank you.
If I'm looking for someone who is caring, am I caring myself? Isn't it?
Exactly.
And you will, once you've done the awareness or the evaluation or self-assessment, you will know the wants and don't want, so likes and dislikes, so that you don't settle at any point for anything less.
But the key thing is, the areas I identified that I was lacking in, I started working on.
Brilliant. I see.
The idea is not just to tick off and say, oh yeah, you say, okay, I'm a very stingy person. I think of just me. And you sit down and say, well, I can't change now. I started working on areas I felt were not good to match the qualities I'm expecting in this person that's supposed to be perfect, who was just dropped from heaven, who never went through his own life, his own path and his challenges, who's been formed in his own ideology of life. And I just wanted them to be packaged and be perfect for me while I start on my bad qualities and didn't make any effort. So I started to work on things because I was a timid and very shy person when I finished, up until I got married. And I knew that wasn't going to work. I wanted somebody who was bubbly, a very friendly person. So I needed to work on that.
Interesting. You know what? It sounds like two sides of a coin. While you're looking at your positive qualities and what, making sure that's because that's what you're looking for. You're also not denying the areas that need developing in yourself, so exactly. There's two sides of both coins. Amazing. Yeah. That's good.
So throwing that back at you, what are your go-to areas, things that have held you together up until now?
Very similar to you, you like you said, you're a believer, a Christian. You believe in the Creator and His Son whom He sent. I believe that very much as well. And my anchor is the Word. The Word. I believe that the Creator, who is also the orchestrator and the architect of marriage, has given us some guidelines, and I think, like you said, understanding those guidelines is, a very powerful place to begin. And then, just like you said, when you do the evaluation or you are evaluating yourself and getting ready to make sure that, you look at your objective as well, you see your strengths and you see your area of developmental needs, then you can weigh those against the standards that God has put in His words for marriage, because He's the one who created marriage in the first place. So for me, I was very, very blessed and fortunate to have had the opportunity, to know or have a glimpse, just to have the revelation that, God is the author of relationships. He's the one who instituted marriage, and He had some guidelines for marriage. So what I had to do then was really begin, and I have not mastered it by any means. I have not mastered it, but I am. But I have some insights into what needs to be done. So serving, making sure I serve, making sure I love, making sure I forgive them quickly, making sure that I understand that, we are all work in progress. It says that we are being renewed every day, so every time I have a conflict with my wife or even with myself, I know, okay, what, this is a bump on the road, let's deal with it. Let's work on it. Let's communicate, so I just rushed through that because I'm aware of the time. I want to, we want to keep it nice and tight. But like you said, this particular topic that we started on, which is sort of like the allies that, we've looked at to keep our marriage going, is a loaded one.
Yeah.
Is a loaded one, so.
We'll unpack in subsequent sessions.
We will indeed. So, very quickly, so, those were the allies, right? Like you said, the some of the things that the anchors, the pillars that has really helped. If there was one or two things that maybe you could go back and say, make some adjustments or some tweaks or do differently, what would that one or two thing be?
Oh boy,
that you would do differently.
I'm just.
Have we run out of time? Have you been saved by the bell?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, there's 5 minutes, is there? Let's do it then. Let's do it.
Sorry?
Yeah, so let's do it then in 5 minutes, in less than 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what would I have done differently? I don't know. I'm not even sure, because I was very young when I got into everything in life, and I literally just cruised through with the determination that I wasn't ready to fail. So yeah, I think it'll probably maybe if I did a bit more research into marriage, because I went into it as a very, very naive person. I can't even begin to tell you what that word means.
Yeah.
I had no clue what the expectations were in terms of what you were supposed to do as a married woman. I just knew you were supposed to get into this thing and just go with the flow. And
Yeah.
I had to learn most of those, on the job, so to speak. So yeah, so maybe, now there's so many, maybe introductory books as to just learning about, and also being a woman. I knew nothing about my body as a woman. So
Mm, mm, mm.
so I'll probably have read some books, telling me about understanding my own anatomy, because I had no clue what this. So yeah, that's something I would have done different. I'm sure my husband will agree with that. So it would have been nice to be
So
educated
can you
yourself
just
on that.
can you clarify just very briefly when you say your body?
Hmm.
You've lost me a little bit.
Well, I think that is something we'll have to delve into, because on
Okay.
my wedding, that's to do with really my wedding night. I had no clue I was
Okay. I
supposed to.
wanted to just clarify. I didn't want to assume. So we will park that.
We
I've
have
made a
to.
note. I've made a note. Note to self. Maybe next episode. Yeah,
Oh, my daughters are going to
episode.
wring my neck when they hear this.
Body understanding. Olu. Excellent. All right. Noted.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Back
Right.
to you.
So for
What
me,
would you have done differently?
I would very easy. This for me, I would talk more. I would
Okay.
talk more.
How do you mean talk more? To who?
Yeah,
With
to my
yourself or to your
to
partner?
to both ways, both ways. I mean, I think I will
Okay.
speak more. I'll definitely speak more to my spouse, to Falake, to my wife.
Okay.
I will talk more about details, and
Okay.
and I'll make sure it's not overwhelming, just
Okay.
really talk things through more, because you see, my personality type is I'm quite intuitive. I'm big picture type person.
Okay.
So when I say, honey, we are doing XYZ, I assume XYZ is very clear to honey, but it's not always clear.
They're not in your head, mate.
Exactly. And I would like to say, okay, honey, X means this, this, this. Any question? What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Da 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 da. What? When I said X, what did you hear? That kind of thing. Just
Exactly.
because that's what I'll do differently. That's what I'll do
Okay.
differently. Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I would take the communication to a deeper level and just get more feedback.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that particular aspect, and that's the reason why I said it was an easy answer for me, because I'm still there. I'm working on making the communication deeper, clearer, more meaningful, and yeah, rich. Make it rich. Make the communication rich. Don't make any assumptions, and laugh. They love laughing.
Like we said, we're from different backgrounds and
Yes.
our orientations are very different. So
Yes.
your communication is going to be, mode is going to be different to your partners.
Absolutely.
So that we've learned too. That's something that's very key to every relationship, because the principal thing is being able to speak your mind.
Yes.
Instead of, going away and feeling hurt or misinterpreting what was not meant to be a big deal, but because your way of interpreting things was different and it wasn't made clear by the communicator. They just assumed, it was very simple, so you got it. And that's another, tension point that I realized in relationships and marriages. And those are things that we're going to touch on. Just the patience to expound on what you're trying to say, no matter how simple you think it is in your head.
Yes.
The partner is on your head. And that
wow.
I've
You
had
get it.
to
You
learn
get
too.
me.
Exactly.
You get
I've
me. You
learned
get me.
that too, that, and for someone like me, because my thought process, I'm a very fast person. I'm processing like God knows how many things at once. So when I say something, I'm assuming, you should be quick enough to understand.
Yeah, precisely that.
So unfair. I do it with a lot of people, not just my spouse, my children. So now I'm like, God, just give me the grace to be patient and just calm down. Just bring it down a few notches. So yeah, we will talk on all of those in time.
Fantastic. Excellent. I believe we're out of time.
Yes, we are now.
But again, guys, please, drop comments, what's been useful, any questions about some of the stuff that we've talked about, please, just drop some comments. We welcome comments, don't we, Olu?
Yes, because
Yeah.
that'll guide us to know which areas that you want us to get into.
Yes.
And like we said before, we want to be as honest as possible. We are Christians, but we also need to be honest about what really goes on in a marriage so that people can actually gain practical help as opposed to just being told some theoretical understanding or supposed philosophy about marriage. It's very different for different different couples. Your journey is different to mine because we're two different people in the same institution. So my 7 rules to happiness will not necessarily work for you. And that's why I said earlier, we need to customize our own worksheet and then take it from there. Don't go by other people's ideology of what a marriage should be because you're two different people. The way you process things, the way you process pain, your backgrounds, what you've dealt with, what you've overcome, they're so different. So let's not assume that someone else's 6 steps to whatever or 12 steps to this is applicable to all. There's no such thing.
Very good, very good. We should, take these things, but go away and really, think critically and see if they are our truths as well, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. So, guys, thank you. Any final word, Olu, before we?
I just gave my final word.
Oh, that was your final word. Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I hadn't labeled it, so forgive me. My final word is, guys, it's a journey. We've said marriage is a journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Let's make it enjoyable. Let's make it fun, and let us just continue to stay safe, emotionally, mentally, and physically. God bless you all, and we will speak to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.